Welcome to The Conscious Entrepreneur, the only podcast 100% dedicated to the well-being of entrepreneurs. It's where founders come to sharpen their edge from the inside out and lead with clarity, connection, and purpose, without buying into hustle culture or burning out. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss an episode. Let's get started. In this episode, we are joined again by Beck and Marina to talk about the second stage after we kind of find our fear and suffering, and we have an opportunity to recognize that something's going on. The next step in this process is to become curious about it. So what I would love to know is I've heard you talk about curiosity as a bridge between fear and possibility, and that it's such an important thing to stop and sort of be curious about what is actually happening. Could you talk about why this moment is so useful and so valuable, and why having that open mind creates new possibilities for us?
So we always like to talk about, if we've been talking about fear and suffering is really a contraction in our experience, the tight fist, the tight chest. Curiosity is that antidote to it. It's sort of the expansion that follows after the contraction if you can have awareness. And so how do we identify, the moments where we can be curious, where we might be telling ourselves old stories, or maybe not stopping to take a breath to realize there's more available to us. That ability to expand, to be open, to take a breath is actually where the possibilities then start to come.
That pause is very powerful. Could you talk about maybe some of the curious questions or examples that you could maybe seed in our minds for when this happens to us?
Yes. And before we do that, let's talk about we all care a lot about consciousness, right? So when we go from fear, that gripping amygdala, we're pulling back, we're retracting, right? We're not in our full experience. And so the curiosity move actually starts to help us have cognition, which is where we can start to understand being more conscious, right? There's less consciousness when we're stuck in that fear, when we become aware of that, and then we move toward curiosity. We do need to be in the prefrontal cortex to ask that question. The amygdala is not capable of that. It has to allow that softness to happen. So one of the questions I love that really works, and I think you have to really develop your own questions. So whatever we offer here, hopefully will stimulate some way that you understand yourself in a way you can ask, I say better questions, is what else is true? And the inherent nature of that question that we can ask ourselves, that moment we're aware something's happening, okay, I'm kind of stuck in some fear here, and I say, what else is true? I'm not denying that whatever I'm experiencing about fear is untrue, right? So the question is, what else is true? So we're not trying to push whatever the mind has brought to the forefront away. We're inviting the mind to say, what else can I engage with? So that by nature is curious, and it shifts the kind of consciousness we have in that moment. And that you can hear it in my voice. Like I just get so excited talking about that and watching people have experiences of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And another version of that question, the similar train, is what story am I telling myself right now? So there are two ways of kind of getting at very similar things. Noticing I'm in a story, right? I'm in an autopilot response. Okay, maybe I don't feel good enough in this moment. Maybe part of me isn't fully, at my best. What else is true, right? Understanding that there's something running, and then bringing yourself to that prefrontal cortex, the ability to go, okay, what else? What else?
Well, and I do love that, the opportunity to choose what you believe, and choose to believe or choose to think the thoughts that actually serve you versus the automated story that may actually do nothing but harm you. So, what do you want to believe? What else might be true? And maybe try to believe into that idea if it gives you an advantage.
Exactly.
Well, and we're really talking about the move away from, we all know founders, we're entrepreneurs in our own rights, right? Senior leaders. When we talk about the word agency, right, we need more agency often. And people are like, well, what does that word mean? Is like, can we be in the fullness of our experience? And so when we're in fear, right, when the amygdala is closed and can't soften, then we've reduced our ability to access agency. So the move toward curiosity helps us know we cannot manage this, right? A lot of people want to, I just need to come up with the skills to manage it, right? Like kind of get it in place and put it over there. It's like we actually need the skills to work with it, right? To see it in a moment, to know that it's there, and then have the skills that invite us into a relationship with what's happening, which actually deepens our relationship with ourselves, which then helps us be in better relationships with all the people around us, whether they're the people we're leading in our companies or the kid that we're making a sandwich for that's having a meltdown before school.
When does all of this curiosity happen? Because as I'm thinking about these questions, they feel very reflective. They feel very um, like work, to actually challenge your your automated ways of thinking or your belief, even your belief systems. So to me, this sounds like something I need to go sit with my journal and a cup of tea and really think about. But we're talking about being really in the moment, right? Help me figure that out.
Yeah. So curiosity can't exist where judgment exists. They don't hold the same space. And what's happening when we say, I'm not good enough, or right, I'm having a moment that Beck was just talking about, there's usually an accompanied judgment. If I'm telling myself a story about myself, there's usually a judgment hidden in the story. And so the game, it's interesting because to me, it's like very, very fun to find these things. It's actually really enjoyable once you know how to do it. The game is to go, okay, where's the judgment? Go looking for the judgment and go, okay, there's a judgment here. Cool, I can be with the judgment. Oh, and also here's 17 other things that can exist when I drop the judgment, right?
And this just might be your zone of genius, both of you. Because I think this has something to do with what you've chosen for your professions, because that does not sound fun to me. That sounds really hard.
It's to your point around, like I need to go have some time with my journal. And that's not an incorrect way to think about it, right? It is work.
Right.
But when you start to have revelations, when you start to have insights and discernment and wisdom, when you practice, right? You can't hang out with Marina and I for 5 minutes without the word practice coming into the conversation. So there is some front end commitment around, okay, you're practicing something anyway. It's just on automatic pilot. Do you have the interest and willingness to engage different practices that will shift your trajectory in any given moment? And I say all the time, what Marina and I help people do is discover portable, practical, and accessible practices. These aren't, I have to go to my journal, my meditation cushion, on the vacation, go get a mani-pedi, like all the things we do to take care of ourselves, go run, where we're not getting the full benefit of those things because we are also on some automatic turning inside of ourselves that we've laid into all the other automatic things we're doing. And yes, there's benefit to them, but we're not working with our mind often. So we're talking about learning to work with our minds.
So what does this look like in the moment? I loved in episode 1, if you haven't listened to episode 1, go back and listen to that one. We'll put the link in the show notes. But you gave some like modeling. What does this sound like? What does this look like when you're in a meeting, you're leading a meeting and somebody is challenging you, or you've just gotten some terrible news, something has gone wrong and you're on stage here. And I loved how you shared a soundbite for like, wow, that's really upsetting news. I can feel my heart racing. I can feel, I'm feeling a ton of stress. about that information. And, just you talked about being a vulnerable leader and sharing that. So when we're in this moment of curiosity, what does that look like and sound like in that same moment? Could you walk me through that?
And for me, it's welcoming what's here. So the tone, the attitude is whatever's showing up is here anyway. Can I develop the skills and the practice to welcome it? And one of the things I love to do is just smile. Now, smiling is not always the right answer, right? But when it is, it really works. And you can either physically smile when something difficult comes up, or you can have an inner smile and you can say this too, right? So one of the responses I love is that inviting, welcoming, as it's happening anyway. So the welcome to it is this too, right? This is happening. And then, right, as we progress through this, we'll talk a little bit about active choice. The curiosity is important so that we have that precious moment of opportunity where the next thing we can put into our practice is make the next choice. So it's a softening, right? A smile is not a stiff thing to do. It's actually a welcoming thing to do. And the tone is, the way I've heard teachers of mine talk about it is, it's like you were training a puppy. And you speak to yourself that way, like, oh, okay, I'm upset right now. I'm having a hard time, right? The tone is that encouraging, welcoming. It's not sappy, but it's true. Like, ooh, this is tough. Or even like you would speak to a child that was upset when you're your best self speaking to a child, right?
Yeah. And then, so what does this curiosity sound like? What does it sound like? What am I saying out loud?
Yeah.
I'm smiling through it. And then what?
Exercise in the fear, kind of part one that we described, how do we work with fear? Curiosity from a somatic perspective is an expansion. So body somatic, right? So how do we introduce in the moment those portable, practical tools to recognize our own expansion? There's an edge. It's called an edges exercise. How do we find the edges of our own experience? And so you might, again, just be sitting in a meeting and you don't have to do anything except recognize how far your gaze is actually seeing. And this can happen two ways, okay? So when we are in a stress response, some people have a very narrow gaze. So that you're only seeing it's like a pinhole almost. You can't see beyond, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm doing this wrong, I messed it up, we're going to fail. That's the only thing you can see because that's where your mind is going. It's the tight fist, it's the narrow view. And so literally just sitting in a meeting and recognizing how far do I see? What are the edges of my field? Right? And then what can you do if you go deep breath? I'm clearly in a stress response. Can I expand my view peripherally? Can I maybe just take a quick look this way? Just open my gaze.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a great tip. Nobody needs to see you doing that. It's just
nobody knows
moment.
what you're doing.
Nobody knows what you're doing.
And I think you guys also shared something at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, which was about kind of putting your hands on your lap. I don't know if that was necessarily around curiosity, but it certainly was a opportunity to just take a moment this would be a great time to kind of put your hands on your legs and expand your gaze. So you can say, there's more out here. There's more out here. It's not just this one thing that I believe, the story I'm telling myself, the story they believe, even the other people in the room. So I think that's a really beautiful, actionable tip. So thank you for that. I do want to know, as a person who's leading a team or who's trying to be vulnerable or authentic to your team and to help grow this sort of conscious leadership quality, are we talking about curiosity to the team? Are we bringing them into this moment with us? How do we do that?
actually invite your team into your own practice process to say, I'm working on being more curious. I've noticed that I can get in the meeting, I can get a little tight and I can get rigid and want to move the meeting along. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is actually tell people what you're noticing. So if you're working internally to notice more, one of the things to do is share that. I'm noticing the room got really quiet when we put that number up on the board and everybody was like, that's unachievable. Or we're looking at the P&L and a certain number jumped out. Just whatever that thing is to as the leader, to name it. I noticed the room got excited when this person talked about this possibility for a different way to do this project. So just noticing what's happening for you, noticing what's in the room, and then sharing that openly. I notice I am having a hard time with the fact that this KPI has been read for 4 weeks straight, and I'm not hearing anybody talk about what we're going to do about it. Like, if a leader could say that, that's more of an invitation for the team to come up with something than, this shit's got to get better and it's got to get better right now. I mean, nobody wants to hear that, right? So that's one way.
That is a good way.
Yeah. Another is just watching the way you ask questions, right? From a curiosity perspective. So I agree completely. Sharing what your own practice is if you can just do that, your team will soften. And within that, really be mindful, are you asking why questions? Why is this happening? Why did we miss our number? Why are you guys arguing all the time? And shifting that into, it's truth, people, there's just disconnection. Shifting that into what questions or how questions, right? How questions are super open-ended. They actually encourage creativity. They encourage imagination. How might this look if we introduced a new way of doing things? How might this look if we stopped doing the thing that's been read for four periods? What can I do to support you guys? What's actually going on here? What do you think is contributing to the challenges we're seeing? Why questions are looping questions, which is ironic because purpose is also a why question, right? And so you have to be thoughtful about where your why questions come in. Why is this happening? Not really helpful. What can we do about it? Very curious.
Mm-hmm.
How can I support you? Open-ended.
No, I think that is great advice and something that we could literally practice this week. So last week we practiced figuring out to catch ourselves, to find that pause moment and give ourselves that chance to recognize what's happening in our body and pause. And I think this week, the small thing to try is to verbalize what we notice, name what we notice, and ask open-ended, curious questions that are, it's literally right in the words, right? How? What? Do you have ideas? You could even say, I'm really curious. Is there another way to think about this? We could even say those words. It's very open and it invites conversation. I love the idea of bringing everyone into this together because I think it really does create more connection in the team. And it lets people try to solve problems together or experience something together in a different way than maybe the autopilot way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to add, it is an expression from the leader of confidence, right? So when a leader can be more in curiosity and less in that stuck place of fear and make that trip up to the prefrontal cortex, ask the team a good question, it is a direct expression of confidence that leader has. One, that the team can resolve it and that there's possibility here, right? So I'll end on that possibility note for this section of what we're talking about. But that's the big move is can leaders engage curiosity, not for curiosity's sake, but as an expression of confidence.
Well said. Beautiful. Thank you. That is really, I think, some incredible advice and action that we can all take into our businesses to strengthen our teams, strengthen ourselves as leaders, and, actually give us opportunity to experience the world differently, to problem solve differently, to build relationships in a new way, and just be more aware, which is always our challenge. So thank you guys for that incredible conversation. And if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, go hit the follow button on your app, because we are going to be talking about honesty in the next episode. Listen to episode 1. Thank you for listening to episode 2, and be sure to listen to the next episode, which is honesty. Thanks for watching The Conscious Entrepreneur. If something landed for you, will you leave a comment? I'd love to hear what you thought. And if you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks so much, and I'll meet you here next week.